Hi everybody, it's Kim from Inside My Money, and we're answering another question about tackling transfers of money and making sure things reconcile between your accounts. Now, this also happened to me recently, and I found that there was a couple of things that I needed to check just to make sure that everything was going to show up in the accounts. So I'll show you how I would troubleshoot it, and if anybody else has got any other ideas, then definitely let us know. So if we go into, first of all, go into import transactions. Now, when you import information using, and I'm importing using a QAF, I'm still trying to find an answer to how you can get a CSV in and convert that to a QAF, but that one's taking us a bit longer to figure out. So we'll give that one a go. We'll keep trying to give that one a go, but at the moment that's still a little bit of a mystery. So what you need to do is if I go, let's just choose any old thing here. If I go open and then I go next, so I've picked the download. So sorry, let's start that one again. What I'm doing is I am importing my exported transactions from the bank. So when you want to pull your information into Homebank, you'll go into your online banking, you will export out your information for your bank account, your transactions, then you'll come into Homebank and you will import that information. So let's just pick any sort. So this is now sitting in my downloads in my computer. So now I'm going to grab that information and bring it into Homebank. So if we go open, and it steps you through it step by step. So then you go next. Now, the one thing you need to make sure of is here, you need to make sure that you've got the date order correctly. In New Zealand, we go date, month, year. Overseas, they go month, date, year. You might go year, month, date. But make sure that's right. If you don't make sure that that's right, then if you get transactions, say, for instance, the month of May that we're in now, and because, the 5th is a common number, it could be a day, it could be a month. Say, for instance, your transactions were dated the 12th of May, 2024. Now, you could also have them flipped around so that they look like the 5th of December, 2024. So if you're bringing in transactions for the month of May, but you've got your day, month, year order wrong, then it's actually going to put those transactions into December, not into May. So that's the first things to troubleshoot, is to make sure that your day, month, year is correct. And if you can't find transactions, if you can't reconcile your accounts, then look for the transactions with the wrong way around, with the day and the month. Also, make sure that you always pick your account correctly. You may have gotten the information going into the wrong account, and so you're going to find that your bank accounts won't reconcile. So that's the first way to troubleshoot it. Then you just need to track your funds. So the way that I do it is I always have my Homebank on one side of the screen, and I have my bank account, my online banking information on the right-hand side. And that way I can go from left to right, reconciling. So for instance, let's assume that none of these were reconciled. These are old, but let's say for the month of June, none of these were reconciled. So we'll just go down, highlight all of that, and toggle those. You need to unlock it and then toggle them, and also toggle it again. So now what I tend to do when I'm reconciling is, first of all, I make sure that I've got categories for everything. So I filter everything by category. I make sure that I've got the right date. So we want the month of June 2023. So I would go from the 1st of June and to the end of June, to the 30th of June. And then I would go OK and make sure I've only got the information that I need in front of me. I would first of all check that my closing balance equals my closing balance on my bank statement, because what can happen is some transactions might have slipped into the previous days of the last month. This can sometimes happen with your credit card, where your credit card, you might make a transaction on a Sunday, and that might be in the month of April, but it doesn't come over until the month of May when the bank actually processes it. So what you can do is, instead of starting your filter on the 1st of June, you could also start your filter on the 31st of May. And if you start your filter on the 31st of May, and we go back to the end of June and go OK, then you're going to pick up that closing balance. And that closing balance there should match to your closing balance in your bank account. If that's not matching, then it means that there's been some extra transactions put in that you haven't seen occur, or something's gone into the wrong month accidentally. Sometimes a savings transfer, you might have scheduled it to go out, say, the end of the month, but it didn't go out until 2 days later. So always double check your closing balance from the previous month to make sure it's right before you even start. Then if you know that that's right, then what you can do is you can start reconciling from there. The fastest way I reconcile is I go to a particular point in the month where I know that there's maybe a bit of a lull or maybe there's a major transition. So like to the 20th of the month, that's when this person's salary comes in. Start that one again. On the 5th of the month, this person's salary comes in. So you could say, right, does my bank balance match at that point? If that matches, then I know I can tick all of those off. If it doesn't match, then you know that you need to start further in here and start just ticking off things one at a time. If you've got a transfer like this, so this is answering that specific question, then you want to make sure that that transfer is going correctly to the right accounts. So this money should have gone out of the everyday account and should have gone across to their credit card. Now, if you've scheduled a transfer, remember that when you import your transactions, the scheduled transfer may double up, and it may double up for a different date. So you could end up with that same transfer happening further up here, and now it doesn't reconcile and you don't know why. So just double check. Also double check that this is actually categorized as a transfer. You could categorize it as income coming in into the credit card and an expense going out of the everyday account. If you've categorized it as two different pieces, one going into one account and one going into another, you might not be seeing both pieces of the pie. So my first instinct would be to say, well, that's supposed to be a transfer. I'm going to categorize it as a transfer. So once you know that it's categorized correctly, then we can go into the credit card and open up the credit card. And I'll see if I can do this on two screens. So there we are there. We've got our everyday account on the left and we've got our credit card on the right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go again, customize my dates and make it, I want it the 31st of May and I want this to the end of June, which is when I'm reconciling it. Go OK. And I'm going to look for that. There's the transfer there. So you should see that this transfer and this transfer are correct. Now, if I didn't categorize it as a transfer and just went expense, that will break the transfer. So let's break it. And maybe what we'll do is we'll just show what can happen. We'll just untoggle everything. Right, now let's say, for instance, that that wasn't there. So now I've got this account is going to be correct because there's the money going out of the everyday account to pay for the credit card. But because I didn't categorize it as a transfer, I don't have that in here anymore. And we'll be thinking to ourselves, goodness, why is my credit card balance so wrong? It's because I didn't categorize this as a transfer. So now I recategorize it. It's going to the credit card. And that keeps that transaction in the everyday account okay. But now it's going to put it in here. And I'll have to just shut the credit card down and open it up again. And now you can see there, that is there. So that would be my next protocol is, okay, have I categorized my transfers as transfers, or have I put them in as an income and an expense? Obviously, the income is the money coming into one account, which would be the credit card in this case, and the expense is the money going out of the other one, which is the everyday account when I pay the credit card. So that's just a couple of quick ways to try and check when things don't reconcile. So the first one, check your dates. Remember, when you import transactions, you need to choose the right date, month, year format. If your things aren't reconciling, then check and see if you've got the wrong format and if information's gone into the wrong month. Secondly, when you do come to reconcile starting in chunks and go up to a point where there's a particularly important transaction, and that means that you can then look from point to start with, and that will save you time. If you find there's a mistake in there and that balance isn't right, then you can chunk it down even further and say, right, does it work from there to there? No, it doesn't. Okay, now I've got to go step by step by step by step. I've got to look at each individual transaction and see what I've missed. Check that you haven't doubled up on your scheduled transactions and the system hasn't kept two versions of something. I quite often find a couple of my transactions that are scheduled will also still come up and not get blanked out. Usually Homebank will cross them out, but sometimes if I do it in the wrong order, the scheduled ones don't get blanked out. And then lastly, just when it comes to doing a transfer, make sure that you are categorizing transactions as transfers, not as income and expense, and you've missed one side of that transaction. So I hope that helps. Give us another yell if someone's got any other questions. Happy to answer any questions, and I've got one more I need to look at, so I'll do another video in a moment.